Welcome to Like Mother, Like Murder. I am Rachel.
And I'm Heather.
We bring you the good,
the badass,
and the crime.
This is Like Mother, Like Murder. Welcome back.
Yes, welcome back to Like Mother, Like Murder. For those of you guys, if you are new here, I think that it's been a while since we've done this.
It's been a bit.
I am Rachel.
And I'm Heather.
Yes. We are your Like Mother, Like Murder hosts. And we're just so happy to have you guys here. I feel like we've been getting some new listeners.
We have been getting some new listeners.
From here, there, and everywhere. And we
appreciate it. We appreciate it. Speaking of, last week we had some new podcast ad / recommendations in our episode, or 2 weeks ago. I guess I should say 2 weeks ago. And while I was listening to Spiritual Sisters podcast, I decided.
Yes.
Are you frozen? Oh, no, you're
frozen?
Not. You were just very listening to me.
I was like, where's she going with this? I love listening to podcasts. Who is it?
This is what I want.
Oh.
Do they actually do like their own tarot readings, right?
They do. I don't want to just be like they do tarot, but they have their own. They both have things that they do individually.
Right.
Yes.
Right. I would like to do an episode with them where they give us. I've never had a tarot reading before.
Remember that one time I wanted to do it for you?
I know, and I wanted you to so badly. I wanted you to do my tarot reading. I've never done it before.
I like it.
And I really, really want to. And so I think they would be the perfect people to help me.
All right.
Do
Nicole,
my first tarot.
Gabrielle, we are calling you out. We are shouting it out.
Let's do it. Take my tarot virginity, please.
I'm here for that. We have talked to them, so there will be a collab coming soon anyway, so maybe that can be kind of like an add-on, because I love it. We've been chatting it up a little bit, you know, so just wait for it. And hopefully you guys went and check them out, because we do enjoy listening to them.
Yes.
The Spiritual Sisters podcast.
So, speaking of tarot. I don't know why. I'm trying to do a segue. It's not working. What are you drinking, Rachel?
You could have been like, speaking of tarot, what cards have been dealt for your alcoholic beverage of the evening?
What alcoholic cards have you divined for yourself tonight?
So you guys are going to come on a journey with me, because it's been a while. I am sitting back. Today is Heather's episode, and I am going to indulge in a drink. And it's a two-part drink. So my first is Angry Orchard.
Love it.
Okay. It is
Love it.
The Crisp Apple Angry Orchard Hard Cider. And what we are going to do right now is you guys are all just going to watch me as I take a sip.
Sip it up. I'm really excited now, because you've got me freaking out about what part 2 is going to be of this.
You got to know what part 2 is. Probably need a little more sip.
Okay. So sipping some Angry Orchard,
and
followed by
is Fireball.
Oh, Lord.
Because Fireball and Crisp Apple Angry Orchard, if you put them together, taste like warm cinnamon, like warm apple pie. I'm being serious.
Oh
if
God,
you have not done that, that was probably a lot. I probably, you know what, in my head I was going to drink a little bit of this only, but you were
well, it's in there now. How is that? Is that good? Is that so good?
Yeah, it's been a while. This is my fall. Welcome to fall, everybody.
Fall, y'all.
Fall is among us. It's fall, y'all. And that means we are going to be bringing spooky season soon.
Whoop,
and that's exciting. That is exciting. But yeah, so that's my drink. What are you drinking? How are you going to follow that?
Mine's a 2-parter too. No, actually, mine's a 5-parter, and it starts with, no, I'm kidding. I do not have a 5-course drink. I literally have ice water with some lemon in it, because your girl has been nursing a literally 3-day it's got to be a migraine, right? Like headaches don't last 3 days. And I was incredibly disappointed. It's so funny. Not really, but like I was at the gym the other day and this was like the second day of my headache. And I thought, okay, it's probably just because, the first day I was staring at my computer all day, whatever. Go to the gym the second day of this headache. And I was like, oh, I can feel it, but I'm feeling okay. Rachel calls me at the gym. She's hyping me up because she is the best hype girl. And I'm like, okay, I'm hyped. I can do this. And I literally got off the phone with her and said, wish me luck. To make sure that I do not bail on the gym right now because I feel this headache. And no joke, like within 10 minutes after hanging up with Rachel, I had to go home. Like I couldn't even finish my workout. My head started pounding. And for the last 2 days, that has just been on another level. But I'm feeling much better today. It's only like slightly there.
Yeah.
So I'm literally just drinking all of the liquids. It also probably helps that I had a coffee at dinner time tonight. So that little caffeine kick is probably helping my migraine as well.
What are you, about to be on vacation or something? Like, I'm so
I know. Y'all, if you have been following along, I was actually supposed to be getting ready to leave for Maui in the next few days. But obviously, hearts out to Maui. That trip has been canceled. We will try to reschedule and do what we can to support Maui because, damn.
Yeah.
That shit's fucking sucks.
Definitely some craziness about it.
Yeah. So we're making the best of it. We are going to do a little staycation with the fam. And we're going to figure it out. But I know, late night recording because vacation's starting, y'all.
Hell to the yeah, buddy.
And we're kicking this vacation off with a bang tonight because this topic is one where Rachel, I'm excited to actually go over some scientific shit while Rachel's drinking because this is going to be...
Well, also, when you said we're going out with a bang or however you said it, I raised my drink like you were talking about my drink because it has like Fireball and alcohol and stuff. But you totally meant your topic.
I meant my topic. But you know what? I think it can apply to both. 100% can apply to both. 100%. Okay. So tonight's topic, it's not exactly a case. I mean, it is, but it isn't. So tonight, we're talking DNA. We're talking DNA.
Can you tell me what DNA stands for?
No.
No.
Dianolic nucleic acid or something.
Sounds right to me.
Oh my god.
That was my guess.
Stop it! I did this. Okay, stop it. Because I set up this whole fucking episode with all this information about DNA and I don't even know what it fucking stands for. Way to call me out, Rachel, right at the beginning of this shit. Okay, well,
I just had a shot of Fireball. I'm already drunk.
This is killing me. All right. So tonight is all about DNA. You know what? As soon as we're done recording this, I'm going to post and we are going to pop quiz people and ask them just yes, no, do you know what DNA stands for? Okay. So what I'm going to do first is I am going to give you a short history / fact session about DNA. That doesn't include what it stands for because I'm an idiot. So you guys, you know that usually my husband can hear me recording. He just texted me.
Yes.
Are we ready?
Yes.
DeoxyriboNucleic acid. I was not far off
Well, you knew it started with a D,
acid thing.
and you knew there was an N, and you knew there was an A.
So now that we know what it stands for, we're going to get a little bit into a little bit of, like facts, a little bit of history in terms of like how it's been used in forensic science, and then like, how it's played a role. And then I'm actually going to, so this is the thing, just like Rachel, we listen to podcasts all day long. Like this is just what we do. And I ran across this podcast recently, which I will be talking about and linking. And it's called Admissible: Shreds of Evidence. And it is highly, DNA related. And of course, I have listened to 2 other podcasts where DNA just plays such a major role in the case. And I've wanted to cover specifically one of these because I feel like it is because it's local to me. It's so, it breaks my heart. And I just really want to find out more information on it. But it was covered really well in another podcast that I listened to. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about DNA, and then I am going to get into 4 cases where DNA played that major role. And like I said, all of these cases are on one past podcast or another that I'll tell you all about. And that way you can also go listen to these podcasts to get more information on the cases, because each of these cases is crazy. I am telling you, so crazy.
Have I heard of any of them? Are they known?
So that's the thing, is we have both been into true crime. I had heard of one of these cases, but did not know the details. And the 3 other cases I'm going to talk about, I had never heard of. And the details are insane. I'm telling you, insane. My jaw dropped listening to the details of
that
cases.
jaw and tell us the fucking shit then.
Okay, we're gonna tell you, but first, Rachel.
Oh,
since you popped quizzed me, I actually have some popping quiz for
Diabolical nucleic acid.
Diabolical nucleic acid.
Hello, twisted humans. Do you find yourself wanting to know more about the latest murder, conspiracy, cult, or haunting? Then this is the podcast for you. In 1952, there was a record high of UFOs reported. 1,500 sightings. There has been evidence of human sacrifice, devil worship, and it is haunted by more spirits than can be counted. A family of 2 adults and 2 kids reportedly saw a giant flying thing with glowing red eyes. And meanwhile, the family's nanny that helped Veronica to care for her and Lucian's children was found bludgeoned to death in the basement of their family home. I'm Alicia. And I'm Sierra, and this is Twisted and Uncorked.
Okay, we're gonna start a little game here. This is like drink if you can't answer my question.
Oh God,
Rachel, get your drink ready. She takes a drink. Okay, what year was DNA first used in a court case in the United States?
1964.
Later.
Really?
Yeah. I didn't realize how recent DNA is, because obviously we see it everywhere, but it's a lot more recent than you'd think.
1988.
So close, 87. Oh my gosh, Rachel. I actually think the case finished. Maybe he got sentenced in 88, but it started in 1987.
What case was it? Is that one of the ones you're going to talk about?
It's not one of the ones I'm going to talk about, but it was a guy who was convicted on DNA of he had killed 2 women. I think he was called the South Side Strangler. And yeah, so he was the first one. Yeah, he was the worst. Okay. You only have to take half a drink because your second guess was very, very good. Next question. Mm-hmm. Before DNA, what was a major way to try and identify a suspect using biological evidence? So using something else, like not DNA, but like something else about a person. What were you going to say? Because you're...
If his daddy told on him.
Not the kind of biological I was...
So blood. Something
yes,
with blood?
blood.
Okay.
Exactly. Blood typing. So like type A, type B,
I got
type
that one
O.
right. I was joking with the daddy
No,
thing.
you did a great job. You did a great job. Okay, Rachel. Very good. Very good. So basically, how it works, right? How DNA works is biological evidence is collected. Blood, saliva, semen, obviously, tissue like skin cells or anything like that. It's collected at the crime scene or off of the victim or, you know, wherever they can find it. And then the DNA profile is extracted and quantified. And then what they do, because obviously DNA molecules or whatever are teeny, tiny, they amplify it. So when you hear about PCR testing, that's what they're talking about. They're talking about this amplification process where the teeny tiny itty bitty extracted DNA is amplified so that they can actually detect differences in this DNA versus that DNA, right? So in other words, like all you'd really need is a few skin cells that have usable DNA on it. You can multiply that DNA so much that they can pinpoint, you know, exactly who a person is. Okay?
Okay.
So this amplification process is why it's so important, though, that evidence is handled correctly, because if they let like evidence degrade too much. So for instance, say the evidence wasn't sealed correctly, it got too hot, it got too cold, it wasn't stored at the right temperature, the DNA molecules can degrade so much that when they try to amplify it, nothing's there to amplify. Okay?
No.
Right. And then on the other hand, just like,
I gotta take a drink.
like, let me drink. So on the other hand, that's why it's also really important. So let's say, you know, it was stored at the right temperature, whatever, but the evidence was contaminated with evidence from another case or something like that. Or let's say someone at the crime scene didn't use gloves.
Right. Which
Right?
we see in so many of the cases that we
So
cover.
many cases.
Of things that are so botched when it comes
Exactly.
to the crime scene. So,
Right.
and they say it all the time of like, oh, you know, these small towns with the small town investigators not knowing because it's not something that they do all the time. But, you know, it's more than just a small town.
Yeah, it happens way too often where the evidence was not collected correctly or it wasn't stored properly, so it was contaminated. And the thing that really is worrisome about that is that the amplification process of these teeny tiny molecules, right, literally skin cells, right, that you can't see.
Mm-hmm.
This works on any usable DNA in the sample. So if there was cross-contamination, they'd never be able to pinpoint or definitively say when or how a specific DNA profile got there. Did it happen before the crime occurred? Right? Did it happen actually during the commission of the crime? Or did it happen afterwards? Or even after things were put into evidence. So like, let's say the crime happened at in a public place. They can pull DNA and they could get like 10 profiles.
Right.
And not know when those DNA profiles were there.
The way
right?
that my brain like takes it is like, so you can, this is how what you're saying processes in my head is
Do it.
It's like, I think of a decomposing body and how people are able to say it based off of so many things. Well, you can't do that with that. Right.
Exactly.
So it's
100%,
that's where
Rachel.
my brain goes.
That's it. Like when they look at a decomposing body, they can say based on the bugs that are here and based on the time of and the amount of decomposition, we can say that the time of death happened between X and X. DNA, you can't do that.
Right.
Right? You can't pinpoint when a DNA profile was introduced to whatever,
right.
You know, okay? So they extract it, they amplify it, and then the last step is detection. And this is really where, you know, when they're making comparisons and trying to identify a specific, you know, DNA profile. So the quote unquote gold standard of detecting DNA is called STR. Don't ask me what it stands for.
Sexually transmitted rhinoplasty.
You basically said, like, you're getting a nose job from sexual activity.
I don't think before.
Okay, we are going to do a whole episode where all we have is a list of acronyms used in different true crime settings, and we're just going to make up what they fucking stand for. That's my favorite. Sexually transmitted rhinoplasties. That's the name of this episode. Sexually transmitted rhinoplasties. Oh shit. Okay.
I see.
STR does not
People are like, wow, we used to think they're smart.
No, we're not. We're really not.
Oh man.
So
okay.
STR does not stand for that. But what it I don't know. It could stand for that. I don't know because I don't actually know what it stands for, but I know what it means.
Okay.
It means that what they do is they take multiple points of your nuclear DNA, so DNA found on the nucleus of a cell, and they can pinpoint a specific person. And so like the odds of that piece of biological evidence coming from anyone other than that person, because they locate this on like 13 points of the molecule, is like usually like 1 billion to 1. This is when like you hear like those odds that are like it's 1 billion to 1 chance that it's anyone but whoever is that person, okay? Right. But did you know that there are actually other ways to detect DNA, not using nuclear DNA and being able to pinpoint a specific person? They can also detect DNA using the Y chromosome, which is for males, right? So it only helps, though, identify males or anyone in a male lineage. And then they also have mitochondrial DNA, which is which only detects in the like matriarch, like basically their mother. Okay. And so the thing about the mitochondrial DNA that's really nice is if the evidence is badly degraded and there isn't enough of the nuclear DNA to get that STR, they can use DNA from the other part of the cell, and they can actually come up with at least to identify anyone through their maternal line. So, you know, I don't know if you've heard this before, but you know how sometimes they're like, oh, we found a hair, but it didn't have a root.
Right.
So we couldn't do DNA testing. Technically, they can do mitochondrial DNA testing because all you need is like the actual strand of hair.
Because women are stronger.
Strong enough for a man, made for a woman. Mitochondrial DNA.
Someone pick that up. Someone pick that up right now. Love it.
But like I said, it will only identify people through their maternal lineage. Okay, so it doesn't like pinpoint a specific person. Okay, so now pop quiz. I'm just joking. For your face. Just kidding, everyone. No more quizzes.
Well, I was about to do a sidebar, but you do your pop quiz.
No, I was joking. I just wanted to see your face. But those are just some of the DNA facts that I wanted to go over because it's all like relevant background information to the cases that I'm gonna talk about.
Right. See,
Okay.
so I am going to go on my little sidebar real quick because
Do it.
it's going to be quick. But I was just wondering, and this is just, I'm unwell. But do you remember back when you were a wee child and you had to make the DNA, in the gel bottle, and you had to put all the little things in there and whatever? Man, how much more interesting would it have been if they were like, and this is what you look at if you want to find a murderer.
Seriously.
My life path would have been so different.
It's so crazy because I think about that all the time. Like, I remember reading, like, what is a mitochondria? Like, I remember that word just because it's a weird word. But
well, obviously I remembered putting it into my gel bottle.
Exactly. But like, I'm like, okay, it never stuck with me. And then in researching for this episode, I'm sitting here reading about like scientific stuff just so I can understand how in the world are they doing this, because like this mitochondrial DNA, this comes up in one of the cases that I'm just gonna go over. And so it's so interesting. And I was like, wait, how is this working? Oh my gosh. And like, I never thought about it before. Right. But yeah, how much more interesting would it have been? For sure.
Just for all those teachers out there that want to make things a little more interesting.
Yeah. Put it in terms of murder.
Yes. Mad.
So speaking of murder, so all these cases that I'm going to talk about, they, like I said, they all come from one podcast or another that I've listened to over the years. And so I'm not going to get into all of the nitty gritty details. I do want to cover at least one of these cases for sure in detail. But you guys should totally go listen to the podcasts that I listen to. And I'll link them. I'll tell you what they are. But I can't go into all the detail because it would obviously like take way too long. And like I said, I do eventually want to cover at least one of these cases like fully. So what I'm going to do is the first two cases I'm going to tell you about is where DNA evidence was the reason the person was arrested. And then I'm going to tell you about two cases where DNA evidence was the reason the person was exonerated. We ready?
Yes.
Okay. So the first case is from a podcast called Strangeland. It is season 1 of Strangeland. And it is the case of there's a couple different names for it. Koreatown murders, Miracle Mile murders, Miracle Mile massacre. And this is a case out of LA that I am so surprised that I had never heard of really before I listened to this podcast. But so what it is it's really sad. A mother and her 2-year-old son and the family's nanny were all murdered in the bathroom of their apartment. And it happens in 2003. Of course, the first thing cops do, they look at the husband. They look at the husband, and who he works locally in the garment district of LA. They look into him. They find out he had been having some affairs. There was like a whole thing about a tip letter saying he was the one who did it. He hired like basically like hitmen from Korea, a lot of stuff, but they don't find any solid evidence for that. And so, like I said, this happened in 2003, and then it took 5 years. Case went cold. They didn't have anything in it. 5 years later, they get a hit on DNA that had that they had collected from the scene of the crime.
Right.
And the reason it took 5 years to get the hit, in 2008, a man named Robin Cho was convicted of like some felony fraud, like nonviolent, just fraud type of stuff, but it was enough money that it was considered a felony. And when you are convicted of a felony, you have to submit your DNA
right
to the records.
Okay.
So 2008, he put his DNA goes into the system for this totally unrelated thing, and it comes back as a hit on basically pieces of latex gloves that were found at the crime scene. Turns out this guy, Robin Cho, used to live in the building, was living in the building at the time of the murder. He no longer lived there, but he was living in the building at the time of the murder. And he had his parking spot. There was a big parking garage under this apartment complex. His parking spot was right next to their parking spot. Okay. So, and when cops pick him up in like 2009 and they're like, hey, and they don't let him know right away that they have his DNA. They just, they say, they make up something that like, hey, you know, this case has turned cold. It's getting new investigation. We're just trying to follow up. So we're re-interviewing everyone in the building. They ask him what he remembers about the case. They ask him if he knew them. They ask him, you know, did he ever talk to them? And the only thing he said was, well, I remember when it happened because, you know, our building had the cops all around it.
Right.
My parking spot was next to them, but I didn't really know them personally, everything like that. And then they let him go. They follow him to see like if he's going to do anything sketchy. And then they pick him up again, and that's when they drop the bomb. And they're like, "Look, we have your DNA." And he's like, "Well, how do you have my DNA? Like, how do you have my DNA?"
Yeah.
And when they had been questioning, they asked him. They got to this part where they asked him when they were asking him about like his parking spot. Turns out that he used to keep like a box of cleaning supplies for when he cleaned his car, cleaned this or that, including gloves. And he'd just keep it in the parking spot. Like, you know, anyone could walk by and pick it up seemingly. And so when they told him, we have your DNA at the crime scene, he's like, how? I've never been to that apartment. I don't know how I don't know how you got my DNA, you know, da 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 da. And the cops are like, dude, like, stop lying. And when it goes to trial, they don't really have a solid motive because they look into everything. They can't find money being transferred for a supposed hit. They can't find any other traces of him in the apartment. The apartment basically whoever was there to just commit this murder. There was nothing else stolen. It wasn't ransacked. So if he was doing it for money, he didn't do a good job because he missed a shit ton of money that was like sitting there. Right. They can't find evidence that he was paid by anyone. There's no other evidence. There's no other motive. But the DNA from the glove is all people care about. And it goes to trial and he's convicted. Sentenced to life. And the crazy thing too is the cops picked him up in like the DNA popped, I think in like 2008, cops picked him up early 2009. And then it's not until 2012. So the trial took a long time and they were still trying to like round up more information because they still don't have a motive for this guy. And even during the trial, the prosecuting attorney was basically like, it doesn't matter the motive. It doesn't matter the motive. He did it. Right. So
I'm like waiting for you to like drop something that's going to like change all of this because this is just crazy to me.
What are your initial thoughts?
That you were going to turn it around and say he was not
So this is the thing.
It didn't happen.
He's attempted appeals. He tried to do an appeal saying that like he did, basically like the one you do where you're like, my lawyer was incompetent, and they didn't, and because they brought up all this stuff. They brought up all his fraud related charges, saying like, look, if someone can steal money, then they can murder someone. I don't know. It's like, you know, and then and they brought up all this stuff. And the crazy thing that got me is like, I hear, okay, his DNA was found on the glove. That's the only real evidence we have. And then as a defense attorney, I feel like your thing is, well, he used to keep gloves that he used in open area where anyone could take it. Right? To me, that screams reasonable doubt. Like if I'm caught up in to the DNA and I'm like that's all you have, I'm thinking you got to give me more here, dude, because I'm not about to put a dude in jail for his whole entire life if all you can tell me is, hey, he touched a glove that was used.
Yeah, if his glove and his DNA was then on a murder weapon, then on the body, then in the house, and then everything else, then you could be like, yeah, that glove mattered. But at this point, to me, that glove is just
100%
irrelevant.
100%. We found his fingerprints on the door. We found his fingerprints all over the house. We also found, you know, the all of that stuff. Like, okay, but that's like pretty much all they had. And so, what was crazy to me is like, to me, that screams reasonable doubt. Now, interestingly, when they go to the sentencing phase of this trial, his defense lawyer brings up the idea of lingering, if you have lingering doubt, which I didn't know was like a thing, but it's like in between reasonable doubt and like 100% like undoubtable. So he ends up, you know, he was on, they were putting, you know, the death sentence on the table. And
how is that even a freaking thing?
I know.
And you said 2008?
Yep.
12, 9?
Yeah. So 2008 is when he got, like the DNA kind of popped. And then in 2012 is when he was sentenced.
Okay. So actually, let me retract that statement. Based on the victims.
Right.
I can understand whoever actually committed this crime being held. I mean, I'm not a death penalty person, but I am also a death penalty person. But okay, the point is remembering who the victims were. I can understand that more.
Right.
But not with what was given, right?
Exactly.
So
exactly.
Anyways.
Exactly. So he does end up getting just life without parole. Okay. And he tries to retry the case. He tries to say, you know, like there was all this issue with how the prosecution kept bringing up like his fraud case and stuff like that. And he doesn't win a retrial. Last I've heard, but this was like 2 years ago now, is that the Innocence Project is considering taking up his case. But I don't know how, if there's not any other evidence, but maybe they'll be able to argue it differently. I don't know. But interestingly, so they were able to get his DNA off of the glove fragment. Now, obviously, there was other things that they pulled DNA from, but a lot of it had been degraded. So they did that mitochondrial DNA on it.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. And I mean, they were able to, you know, say one of this came from the mother, the victim, and one of it came from him, like, you know, the glove fragment or whatever. But I guess one of the samples taken was so, I guess just, it was so soaked in blood that they said they weren't able to get any usable DNA from it because it, when there's too much material, it would skew the results and you wouldn't be able to get anything, right? So that's just what's so crazy to me. And you guys have to go listen to it. Again, this is called Strange Land. It's season 1. It's so good. And you just, and let me know your thoughts, because when I first listened to it, and podcasts, definitely, you can usually tell which way like the podcast is thinking of a case, right? Obviously.
Absolutely. Yeah.
They're totally right. But you'll have to listen to it and please tell us what you think, because to me, in my head, I'm screaming reasonable doubt like the whole entire time, because I'm so like, it's so true too that like, let's say he did do it. I feel like even under the way that our court system is supposed to work, he still shouldn't be in jail for it. There is too much reasonable doubt.
Yeah.
Too much reasonable doubt. So that is case 1. Strange Land, the Miracle Mile murders, and Robin Cho, who was convicted, arrested and convicted on that DNA evidence like 5-6 years later.
Yeah.
And I really don't know about that one.
Don't
Okay.
know about that one.
Yeah. The second one I want to tell you about.
Oh boy.
This is from season 1 of a show called Suspect, which is also so good. You guys just have to, if you need to listen to podcasts, clearly.
If you're here, you should be here.
So this is the case of, so this one's really, really sad. So a young woman in her 20s, she'd recently, came to the United States for a job. Everyone says she's awesome. She's amazing. She freaking rides motorcycles. She's amazing. Makes me sad. She in her apartment complex, they decide to have a Halloween party where it's kind of like throughout the Halloween or throughout the complex, they're going to have like different Halloween themes or whatever like that. And they have this Halloween party, and a few days later, she is found in her apartment murdered. And this happens. So the Halloween party happened in 2008. And they have one guy who is actually her neighbor, who during his interview, he gives some contradictory statements. He's kind of caught in a few lies. But ultimately, they don't have much other evidence on him. They don't do anything but question him. And then he lawyers up. And then 2 years later, almost to the day, October 30th in 2010, they arrest a man named Emmanuel Fair. He was a young Black man, the only Black man at the party. So when they were looking through pictures of the party, like they were like, oh, he sticks out like a sore thumb. And he's on parole for previous crime. He had some previous crimes. He had some gang ties, and so he's on parole. They pick him up off parole violation, and then start questioning him about this thing. And then it takes a long time while he's like in jail on his parole violation before they actually say, okay, fine, you're going to be arrested and you're going to be tried on this murder charge. So like I said, the Halloween party happened in 2008. He gets put in jail in 2010. His first trial isn't until 2017.
That's crazy. That's freaking
So he
crazy.
sat in jail for 7 years. And it's like, you guys, if you don't remember this from your history class, one of our rights as American citizens is the right to a speedy trial. So this dude sat in jail for 7 years before he got a trial. And so here is where DNA comes in. obviously it was a Halloween party. Lots of DNA flying. His DNA is found
in
on
a beer pong cup.
I mean, literally, it might as well be. It's some duct tape, and when people were asked, when it was a Halloween party, so they interviewed all of the different people who went to the party. When they asked about, what happened, he was there. One of his friends lived in the apartment complex, so he was helping them all set up for the party. Decorations, this and that,
Okay.
da 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 da. When they asked everyone about him, they were like, "Oh, he was really nice." Da 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 da. At one point during the party, some dickhead punched him, like literally, like sucker punched him in the face. So when they were like pulling DNA, they found bloody tissues in the bathroom from when he got punched in the face. But then they also did find like trace amounts of his DNA on the tape. So remember, I said, as long as it's usable and it has that molecule, all you need is a few skin cells,
right,
to pick up
so
this
it's
DNA.
more than enough.
Yeah, it was more than enough. But here's the crazy thing: they found DNA profiles from 2 other known people. One, the neighbor who was acting sketchy as fuck and lied to police, and DNA from her boyfriend at the time, or the guy she was dating at the time, although he had an alibi that was pretty solid. But they find other people's DNA profiles, yet this kid is the only one they pick up, leave in jail for 7 years, and then say, well, his DNA was at the party. So was the DNA of like 50 other freaking people.
That's not how things work around here. What are you talking about?
It should not be how things work. But
man, so
his first trial is in 2017. Like I said, it's a hung jury. They can't come to a decision. They say they can't decide. So he gets a second trial in 2019, and his lawyer is a straight up badass. They interview this lawyer on the podcast on Suspect, and his second lawyer is such a badass, and he really goes to the fact of like, hey, look, yes, his DNA was there. Can you tell me when it got there? Before the party, after the party, during the murder? You can't tell me that. And he brings up time and time again that, like, sure, Emmanuel's DNA was on all this evidence. So was the DNA of tons of other people.
Right.
So, and why are those other people not on trial right now? I'll tell you why. Because the fucking prosecution basically cuts a deal with the neighbor.
What the?
Rachel, it's so fucked up. It's so fucked up. You sit here and you think like this is happening in fucking 2017, 2019. This is recent, and we're still seeing this ridiculous amount of just innate built-in racism and just like, and complete, like, I mean, yeah, the neighbor had enough money to lawyer up. And I want to say, and I could be getting this confused with another case, so I'll go back and double check. Sorry, I know my voice is kind of losing it right now. Hold on. But I almost want to say that the neighbor lawyered up with, I want to say, the same people who worked. I'm going to have to go back. I don't want to say it because like I could be completely wrong because I listen to a lot of podcasts. But anyway, like this neighbor was able to lawyer up, was able to, had the resources to do it. Emmanuel came from a rough background, obviously couldn't afford a lawyer, was relying on public defenders.
Right.
Luckily, he got a fucking good one the second time around. And it's just like, oh my God.
So frustrating.
And the craziest thing about this, Rachel, if you are exonerated from a crime, meaning you were convicted and then later found to be innocent, you are eligible to receive some kind of, compensation because you spent time.
Yeah.
Technically, Emmanuel was never convicted of his crime.
fudge
I'm
sickles
not.
up.
Yeah.
Are you shitting me?
He sat in jail for 7 fucking years because of a touch DNA thing. Is found innocent, and he gets nothing for having sat in jail for 7. I mean, he gets his innocence. Okay, we'll take it.
Hey,
but
you need money, though.
You get for real. For fucking real. So last I heard about the case, he is going to try to sue to get some kind of compensation, because clearly there was, prejudice happening in this fucking case. So insane.
That is wild.
Wild, right? So wild.
Right.
So
Emmanuel, hit me up. I'll buy you a drink.
Worse. Yeah, Emmanuel.
That's all I've got for you. But I'll buy you a drink.
I know we're poor, but it's okay. We'll do what we can. So it only gets worse from here, Rachel. I'm telling you. God. I'm sorry. So like I said, those were 2 where DNA was responsible for. I mean, not conviction in Emmanuel's case, but might as well be, because he spent 7 fucking years in jail for it. But like for the arrest and for
Yeah.
Now we're going to talk about how DNA did exonerate. However, these circumstances are so beyond fucked up that if your jaw wasn't hitting the floor before.
So it's going to be over something that they shouldn't have been exonerated for?
No. They should have. They should have been.
Oh, I'm like, you're about to tell me someone's
No. Okay, so these next 2 cases I actually got from the same podcast. This podcast is the one I mentioned, Admissible Shreds of Evidence. It's so fucking good. Oh my God. My jaw just like, it's one thing after another, and you're like, no freaking way. Okay, so this first one, his name is Marvin Anderson, and his story is so sad. Okay, so 1982, he's like young, like 19, maybe 18, maybe 19. And he gets picked up because a young woman in his town was brutally attacked and raped. And during the attack, her attacker said to her, and I'm really sorry, you guys, this is like the worst. Her attacker said to her, "You remind me of my white girlfriend." Now, based on that, cops arrest Marvin Anderson, who at the time had a white girlfriend. And according to him, there was no other real interracial couples happening in this town in 1982. It was still very, okay. So they pick him up, they arrest him, and when they do, because back then, and remember, this is 1982, so do you remember when DNA evidence came on the scene? It wasn't until
87.
Right, 5 years later. So they did blood testing, and back in the day, a lot of times what blood testing could do was actually eliminate a suspect.
Okay. Right?
So it's like, okay, we found this evidence. It's blood type B. Your suspect is A. So that's not him. Go look for somebody else. Okay. But his blood typing was quote unquote inconclusive. So couldn't seemingly exclude him from the crime. But they apparently, the original suspect list, he was number 7 on the list. Number 1 on the list was a guy who was seen stealing a bike that was later found at the crime scene. Okay. Why they didn't go after this guy, I do not know. But he gets arrested, convicted. And then get this. 6 years later, in 1988, the bike thief comes forward and in a court in front of a judge says it was me.
Oh, really? Oh, does he? Sorry, you guys, if for that pause, but I was headbutting the screen because I'm just
he comes
flabbergasted. Like, what?
6 years later. So apparently, this dude, as horrible of a dude as he is, because of fuck you, go to jail. He's so upset by the racism that he admits to the fucking crime. And you know what a judge says? No.
Oh my God. No.
So Marvin Anderson stays in jail even after the guy who actually did it admits to fucking doing it. DNA comes out. They're trying to get a hold of his old case files to find out, is there any way we can get DNA so we can prove that it wasn't Marvin?
Okay.
It takes a whole hell of a long fucking time. Okay. And he actually gets out on parole before, this is happening. And the Innocence Project picks up his case, and his mother, y'all, you need to listen, because his mother, I fucking love her. So she knew who it was. She knew who the bike thief was. She goes up to this guy's house trying to get his fingerprints, trying to catch him. She's on it. She's on her shit. She goes around calling everyone, and if they still have case files so that they can try to get him exonerated, all this stuff. Finally, the actual co-founder, one of the co-founders of the Innocence Project, this happened in Virginia, calls the head of the Virginia crime lab.
Okay.
And basically says, look, if y'all can't find anything, if it's not at your lab, if it's not been, can you look back at the original, technician's notes and see if maybe she wrote down where she sent this stuff after she was done using it.
Right.
The director of the crime lab goes in and he finds her notebook, and it has pieces of evidence taped in the notebook, which was 100% against protocol, but she had done it anyway. They test it, and guess who it was?
Oh my gosh.
Obviously, it was the fucking bike thief.
Oh,
clearly.
I didn't think that.
No, it was definitely the fucking bike thief.
I know, I'm kidding.
So he's eventually exonerated. They give him a full pardon. And it's all because this woman had saved this lab tech. She was actually the head of the serology, back in the 80s or whatever. And when the story starts coming out, everyone's like, oh my God, this woman, she's the savior. She was ahead of her time. She saved these scraps of evidence because she knew DNA would be a thing one day. She's, a godsend.
She's in jail.
No, she actually died, but
oh, I'm like, she got locked up.
No.
She's in trouble. She's our next. Oh.
Let me tell you about the next case.
Oh gosh.
Julius Earl Ruffin. Very similar. He was convicted of a rape, and oh my God, the story is actually really sad. And there's so much more stuff that goes into this that they don't actually go over too much in the podcast. But I was looking into it, and it's so fucked up. It really just gets into, eyewitness testimony and just the fails of that. So basically what happened is this woman was attacked. She was raped. When she went to the cops, she described her attacker, and then they show her hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pictures. And then she said that it was so in her head that she would literally walk down the street and be scanning to try to find this guy, because she's just I need to identify him. She works at a hospital where Julius Earl Ruffin is I think he was like a janitor or something. She sees him one day and she goes, that's him, even though he doesn't actually fit the description that she originally gave the cops. And we know how we know how eyewitness testimony and leading a witness and all that can be impacted if you've seen 300 pictures in the last, week. So she goes back to the cop. She goes, it's him. They arrest him. He's like, what the fuck? They test his blood, and he is technically convicted on his blood type, even though it technically his blood type shouldn't have excluded him, but he was the same blood type as what the evidence they found.
How many blood types are there?
3. And then so that's the point, is that
Is
like 50% of the fucking population. Well, I think at the time they could only determine A, B, or O. Like they couldn't do more than
negatives or anything.
So yeah, I don't think they could do more than that. So like
just over here, like, okay, so you're a third of the population right here, just totally getting locked up.
Exactly.
That's ridiculous.
So he gets convicted because this same woman who taped evidence in her notebook said, oh yeah, he can't be excluded. Yeah. And then, so actually when he goes to trial, he gets 2 mistrials. He goes to trial 3 times. This poor man, he goes to trial 3 times. He gets 2 mistrials at first. The 3rd time he goes to trial, he's convicted by an all-white jury. His first 2 trials were mixed juries.
Hey.
He writes to, because, DNA comes out. He starts writing letters. He says, please test it in 2002. And he gets, because they do the same thing. They go back. The same serologist, the woman who said, oh, your blood type is a match, saved his evidence. Turns out it wasn't him.
That guy was doing some shady shit, man.
Shady shit, Rachel. That is why I'm telling you, you have to go listen to Admissible, because it is all about the shady shit that this woman did.
Wow. So
everyone was like, oh my God, this woman's a savior. And I feel like I'm kind of ruining the podcast, but spoiler alert. Because she saved so much evidence, there was 13 men that got exonerated.
Wow.
Because she saved all that evidence. But she probably was responsible for putting those 13 men in jail, because it was her serology tests that convicted them in the first place.
Wow.
Yeah.
That blows my mind right there.
Crazy, right? Crazy. So that's Admissible. Like I said, go listen to it. Shreds of Evidence. It's so fucking good. And then the Halloween Party and Emmanuel Fair is Suspect, season 1. And then the Koreatown Murders and Robin Cho, that's Strangeland, season 1. So all amazing podcasts with some amazing research. I just love, and they do a really good job of breaking down like all the DNA and like the scientific, blah, blah, blah of everything that's going on. So,
I feel like you did a really good job.
Oh, thanks. But what it also makes me want to do, so I've wanted to cover the Koreatown murders, because there's just so much going on in that case that I'm like, what the actual fuck?
Right.
So I want to cover that, but talking about a lot of this, and obviously the Innocence Project being involved in several of these cases, and the Innocence Project really got started around the same time that DNA became a thing, because they're like, shit, we can clear a bunch of of wrongful convictions because DNA is a thing now. And so I was looking into the Innocence Project, and their first case is beyond heartbreaking. So it's one that I really want to cover because it's so important. If you guys don't know about the Innocence Project first case, Earl Washington, it's heartbreaking on all sides, just like all sides, like all of it. You're just like, how is this happening in our worlds? And in our not very, it's not too far back history. I mean, this is recent shit, right? This is late 80s, early 90s. And it's just insane to me.
I don't like it.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough. But that's the DNA episode, Rachel.
Yes,
that's the DNA episode.
That is so, when I logged on and I saw just the word DNA or the acronym DNA, because we know damn well it didn't say the word, I wouldn't have clicked on. I wouldn't have logged on. I would have been like, I ain't showing up today. No, I was like, oh, I wonder like where she's going to go with this. So I really like how you gave information, and it was kind of like very informative and taught things and kind of tied it into how you could, well, I don't know how much I retained, Heather, but that's not about me. Other people retain better than me. Quiz me next week. But I love how you then brought those cases to kind of show us, both sides. So wow.
It is just so insane how you think DNA, and it's a good thing, right? Like obviously, like it's an advance in technology that has exonerated so many people who, didn't deserve to be in jail. 100%. It's amazing. But I never realized that can also be the nail in someone's coffin.
Yeah.
I mean, Emmanuel
you did realize that, but it is absolutely like.
I mean, I never thought of it that way, right?
I
like
guess
when you
in the negative sense, because you know that it can be for the right person, but when it's for the wrong person, it's
exactly.
It's awful. So I get where you're saying.
Yeah, like Emmanuel Fair, he spent 7 years in jail based on DNA because he helped hang some fucking Halloween decorations, right? And. Yeah.
That's so not right.
So it just like, it really, we've talked about this before, how like one of our worst fears is like, we're in the wrong place at the wrong time. And then they go back and they use this podcast and say, look, see, she talks about killing people in this episode. It's like, I think about the things I've touched. And like, it's just like, did I touch that? And then they're going to come back and they're going to say, your DNA was all over this. And I'm like, I'm sorry, I was at the grocery store. Yeah. Like I think about it all the time. And I'm like, oh my gosh.
Yep.
So.
Wow. Ooh. I like the direction you're going. Even, psychic talk, right? And then DNA talk and just, like adding the other kind of stuff into it. I'm liking where you're going. Yeah. This is a fun direction.
Nice. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Very cool. Yes. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it as well and took something from it because
learn a little something. You didn't know you were tuning in for a DNA science lesson.
Lecture by Heather. I love it.
But yeah, I really, really recommend you guys go listen to those podcasts. They're amazing. And let us know what you think because, especially like the first two, especially like the case of Robin Cho, you can obviously see a lot of arguments on both sides. And for me, it really screams one thing, but you guys read into it, and listen and tell me what you think. And, I am planning on covering that case, but it's a rough one. It's really sad. it was, a pretty brutal murder of a mother, her nanny, and their 2-year-old, he was 2.
Yeah.
And so it's, and just like the details of it is really rough. The details are tough. And the other case I want to cover, the first Innocence Project case, there was also a young mother and, who brutally, attacked and yeah, those are going to be tough ones. I will get to them. I promise. I just like gotta get my head in the right headspace to really do those justice because they deserve to be covered in their entirety.
Yeah. Well, you do a great job either way. This one, that one, all of it. I love it. I enjoy it. I know our listeners do too. And I just, you're the best. you guys listening? You the best. You guys, my drink was the best.
I'm so glad. And just as a final note, you guys, just a reminder that DNA stands for DeoxyriboNucleic Acid.
Not gonna try to say that tonight.
I need like what are those things where you can get like a robot to
just the voice
like,
to say it for
out?
us.
Yeah, because
yeah.
I
just bring Zach in for any of the pronunciations we need on things, and it's just his voice.
He just needs to tell us.
Yes, love it. That's so funny.
But that's it. That's our DNA updates, and I hope you guys enjoyed. It's a little different flavor this week, but I hope you guys enjoyed it, and let us know what you think. You can hit us up, obviously, on Instagram, TikTok. Our Facebook group page is popping, and make sure I got a text message this week from a cousin, and she was like, can I invite a friend to the Facebook page? I'm like, hell yeah, girl. So if you have any friends who you think would be interested in our Facebook page, please invite them on over. And if you have any cases you want us to cover, you can drop us a line, email us like motherlikemurder@gmail.com. Just hit us up, and we look forward to your thoughts. Let us know what you think.
Yeah, sounds good. Do it. Bring it. And next week, next week, it's my turn. All right, we will talk to you guys next week. Have an amazing, amazing week, and okay, love you, bye.
Okay, love you, bye.
Sexually transmitted rhinoplasty.
I was just gonna say.
All right, I think I hacked in. We're on the air? Shh, security's outside. But how's my hair? It's a radio station. Psst, psst. You guys hear about the Beyond the Shadows podcast with Ryan and Scott? You guys into paranormal? What about true crime? How about UFOs and cryptids? We also have mad hauntings. We got security. No, we don't. We're not big enough to need it yet. No, we got security.
Hey, what are you guys doing? Get out of here! Listen to the Beyond the Shadows podcast. Beyond the Shadows!